Here's one of the biggest misunderstandings in dog behavior. We often explain dogs with human emotions, when what they're actually showing us is something far more immediate, physical, and honest. Take the so-called guilty look, the lowered head, the tucked posture, the ears back. To us it feels obvious my dog knows what they did. But the research tells a different story. In classic studies by Alexandra Horowitz and later follow-up work, the guilty look was linked more strongly to the owner's scolding and body language than to whether the dog had actually broken the rule. In other words, that expression is better understood as an appeasement response, a biological strategy for calming tension rather than human-style remorse. And when a shoe was chewed 3 hours ago, your dog is not likely connecting your current anger to that past event in the way we imagine. Dogs learn best from what is happening right now, not from punishment delivered long after the moment has passed. PubMed. And maybe that shifts something important in us. Instead of seeing a bad dog, we begin to see a dog reading our face, our voice, our posture, trying to keep the relationship safe. That is not manipulation. That is survival, mixed with social intelligence. Your dog is not confessing. They are responding to your present emotional weather. PubMed. Then, there is licking, another behavior people often simplify. We call it kisses. And sometimes affection is absolutely part of it. But licking is also information gathering. Dogs are scent-driven animals, and our skin carries sweat, salt, and other chemical cues that tell a small story about where we've been and how we're feeling. Veterinary sources note that dogs may lick because the skin tastes salty, because certain areas like ears carry strong, scent-rich secretions, and because licking is part of social grooming and appeasement behavior in dogs. It can also help dogs calm themselves. PetMD notes that licking may have self-soothing effects through dopamine and endorphin release in stressful or conflicted situations. PetMD. So when your dog licks your hand after a hard day, it may not be just a kiss. It may also be their way of reading you, bonding with you, and regulating themselves at the same time. That makes the moment more layered, not less loving. But it also comes with an important myth. To gently correct a dog's mouth is not cleaner than a human's mouth. Both contain complex bacterial communities, and canine saliva can carry bacteria, including bacteria linked to antimicrobial resistance. So, affection is one thing, pretending saliva is magically sterile is another. And if licking becomes constant, frantic, or hard to interrupt, that can be a sign of anxiety, compulsive behavior, pain allergies, or nausea. Not just devotion. Jollies. And then we come to one of the most stubborn myths of all grass eating. Many people assume dogs only eat grass because they feel sick and want to make themselves vomit. But the best-known survey data does not support that as the main explanation. VCA and published reviews summarizing owner surveys report that fewer than a quarter of dogs vomit after eating grass and fewer than 10% appear ill beforehand. A 2020 review cited figures of about 23% vomiting afterward and only about 8% showing illness before grass eating. That means the old self-medication story is probably only a small part of the picture. VCA. So why do dogs do it? Sometimes it may be boredom, sometimes curiosity. Sometimes they seem to enjoy the texture or the act of grazing itself. And yes, fiber or roughage may play a role for some dogs. Veterinary sources specifically note that grass can provide roughage and that many grass-eating dogs are not sick beforehand and do not vomit afterward. In other words, a dog nibbling grass is not automatically a medical crisis or a dramatic attempt to purge the stomach. It may simply be one more piece of instinct still living quietly inside a modern dog. VCA. What ties all of these behaviors together is this: dogs are not less emotional than we think, but they are emotional in ways that are more embodied, more immediate, and less story-driven than human emotions. They do not rehearse guilt in the way we do. They do not lick only to kiss. They do not eat grass only because they are ill. Their behavior often sits at the meeting point of biology, instinct, sensation, and relationship. And once we stop forcing human meanings onto every action, we begin to understand something even more beautiful. Dogs are constantly communicating, but in a language made of the body, not speeches. PubMed. So maybe the real invitation here is not to romanticize less, but to observe better. To replace guilt with appeasement. To replace just kisses with social communication and scent reading. To replace the grass-eating panic with calmer curiosity. Because when you understand what your dog is actually doing, you don't lose the magic of the bond, you deepen it. You become fairer, softer, more accurate. And that kind of understanding is its own form of love. Your dog may never speak your language, but if you learn to read theirs, you may discover that they've been telling you the truth all along. Here's a myth. Many people still believe dogs see the world in black and white, and 1 dog year always equals 7 human years. Both ideas sound simple. Both are memorable, and both leave out the real story. Dogs do not live in a colorless world. Their vision is dichromatic, which means they can clearly see blues and yellows, but they do not process color the way we do. Red does not pop for them the way it does for us. In fact, veterinary sources explain that reds may appear more like dark brownish gray or black, while yellow, orange, and green can blend into yellowish tones. So when we choose bright red toys, thinking they'll stand out, we may actually be choosing colors that are far more exciting to us than to them. A blue or yellow toy is often easier for a dog to see. That small detail changes how we understand their world. They are not visually disconnected from life, they simply experience color differently through a visual system built for different priorities, including motion and low light. VCA. The same kind of misunderstanding happens with age. The old 1 dog year equals 7 human years rule is not truly accurate. Dogs do not age in a straight line. They age very quickly in the beginning, especially in the first 2 years. The American Veterinary Medical Association guideline, summarized by the AKC, estimates that the first year of a medium-sized dog's life is roughly like 15 human years, and the second year adds about 9 more, bringing a 2-year-old dog to about 24 human years. After that, the pace changes again. American Kennel Club. And size matters more than many people realize. Small dogs often live longer and age more slowly than large dogs. AKC sources note that large dogs tend to age at an accelerated pace, and larger breeds are often considered seniors earlier than smaller breeds. A Great Dane may be considered senior around age 6, while a small dog may not be considered old until 7 to 10. So when we talk about a dog's real age, we are not just converting years. We are trying to understand biology, size, and the way time moves through different bodies. American Kennel Club. And maybe that is the deeper lesson here. The more accurately we see a dog's world, how they see color, how they age, how their body changes, the more gently and wisely we can care for them. Understanding replaces assumption. And in any relationship, that is one of the truest forms of love. One of the most persistent myths in dog care is this: a dry nose means a sick dog. It sounds simple. It feels easy to check. And because it is easy, many people trust it more than they should. But veterinary guidance is very clear that nose moisture changes throughout the day for many perfectly normal reasons. A dog may wake up from a nap with a dry nose because they were not licking it while sleeping. Sun, wind, indoor heating, age, breed, and even allergies can all change how the nose feels. Just as importantly, a sick dog can still have a cool, wet nose. In other words, nose moisture alone is not a reliable shortcut to health. VCA, and maybe that is the first gentle lesson here. Don't let one small myth make you miss the bigger picture. A loving dog guardian is often better served by watching the dog's whole body than by focusing on one tiny surface. Is your dog eating normally? Are they moving with their usual ease? Do they seem bright, engaged, and comfortable? What do the gums look like? Healthy, pink and moist, or unusually dry, sticky, pale blue, or dark red? Those signs tell us more than a dry nose ever could. AKC guidance specifically notes that gum moisture and color, along with changes in appetite, lethargy, vomiting, diarrhea, and activity level, are much more useful health clues than nose temperature or wetness alone. American Kennel Club. That matters because many dogs are quietly adaptable. They can look mostly fine while something subtle is changing underneath. So when people use the nose as their only test, they can miss the dog who is actually asking for help in quieter ways. A dry nose can be normal. A wet nose can still belong to a dog who is unwell. Real observation asks a deeper question. How is my dog doing as a whole today? That shift, from quick myth to calm awareness, can protect a dog far better than folklore ever could. American Kennel Club. Another myth hides inside the word tired. Many people assume that if a dog has run hard, pulled on a leash, or come home physically worn out, that automatically means the dog is happy. But physical exhaustion and emotional fulfillment are not the same thing. A dog can be physically spent and still mentally understimulated. Training and veterinary behavior. Sources consistently note that mental stimulation matters just as much as physical activity, and sometimes even more, for creating a calm, satisfied dog. Puzzle toys, scent games, short training sessions, and opportunities to investigate the world through the nose all engage the brain in ways a long march around the block may not. American Kennel Club. This is where we need to gently correct another popular phrase you may hear, that 10 minutes of brain work equals 1 hour of running. That is better understood as a rule of thumb than a precise scientific equation. There is no universal calculator that converts sniffing into kilometers. But the core idea behind it is supported mental work can be deeply tiring and regulating for dogs. PetMD notes that mental exercises can leave some dogs even more tired than physical exercise alone. And enrichment research in dogs links environmental and behavioral enrichment to reduced stress, more relaxation, and improved cognitive function. So, the important truth is not the math. The truth is that dogs need more than motion. They need meaning. PetMD. Think about the dog who comes home from a sniff-heavy walk and collapses into a contented nap. That dog may not have run far, but they have worked. They have gathered information, made choices, processed smells, solved little puzzles, and satisfied instincts that matter to them. From a welfare point of view, that kind of engagement can lower frustration and build resilience. So if your dog seems restless, even after lots of exercise, the missing piece may not be more speed. It may be more enrichment, more scent, more thinking, more chances to be a dog in a mentally nourishing way. American Kennel Club. And then there is the myth that older dogs are basically done learning. It is one of the saddest assumptions people carry because it quietly shrinks a senior dog's world. But behavior and veterinary sources continue to push back on that idea. VCA states plainly that old dogs can indeed learn new tricks, and AKC's recent senior dog training guidance says there are always new things older dogs can learn. Senior dogs may need shorter sessions, more patience, and training adapted to their bodies. But the ability to learn does not disappear just because the muzzle turns gray. VCA. In some ways, senior dogs can even become beautiful students. Puppies are curious, yes, but they are also wildly distractible. Many older dogs are steadier. They know their people. They settle faster. They may be less scattered by every sound, scent, and moving leaf. That does not mean every senior dog is easier in every way, but it does mean the old cliché is wrong. Learning is still possible. And not only possible, valuable. Research and clinical guidance on canine cognitive aging increasingly support the role of environmental enrichment, structured activities, and lifelong training in supporting cognition and resilience as dogs age. AAHAA's Senior Care Guidance notes that age-related cognitive impairment affects a meaningful percentage of dogs over 8, and both reviews and enrichment studies point to behavioral and environmental enrichment as part of good support for the aging canine brain. American Kennel Club. So no, a senior dog is not too old for a new cue, a scent game, a gentle puzzle feeder, or a short little trick session that makes their eyes light up again. In fact, those moments may do more than entertain them. They may help keep the mind active, preserve confidence, and protect quality of life. Not because enrichment is magic, and not because every case of canine cognitive dysfunction can be prevented, but because the brain, like the heart, benefits from being engaged with care. Even the phrase "old dogs can't learn new tricks" has been challenged by neuroscience and behavioral literature for years. The ability to adapt does not vanish, it just changes shape. PMC. And maybe that is the deeper message behind all three myths. Good dog care is not about memorizing simple slogans. It is about learning to see the dog in front of you more clearly than the old sayings allow. A dry nose is not a diagnosis. A physically exhausted dog is not always a fulfilled dog. An old dog is not a finished dog. When we let go of those shortcuts, we make room for something better: attention, nuance, and compassion. Because real understanding does not always come from dramatic signs. Sometimes it comes from better questions. Not "is the nose wet?" but "how is my dog really doing today?" Not "did I tire my dog out?" but "did my dog's mind and body both get what they needed?" Not "is my dog too old?" but "what kind of learning would still bring joy right now?" That is the ride. Kind of myth-busting that actually changes a dog's life. And maybe that is what love looks like at its most practical. Not perfection, not panic, but a willingness to observe more carefully, think more clearly, and care more deeply than the myth ever taught us to.